High Stakes Takes podcast. Back. Week 10 in the books. We got the Week 11 breakdown. We got the biggest hitters from the weekend. We got the biggest injuries from the weekend. Top performers. And how about that Hail Mary from Kyler Murray? And as good as that was, we know Kyler Murray can evade the pressure, right? We know he could evade. But the fact that D-Hop got up there on his new team, higher than anybody else, and got that. That boy's a beast. He different. He big different. We got waiver ads. We got the early injury forecast. It's looking rough next week. We got bye weeks. Biggest teams on a bye this week: Buffalo, San Fran, Chicago, and the Giants are on a bye this week. So that's something to look forward to. And definitely keep an eye on, because people are going to be hitting the waiver wire hard this week. Especially with 3 weeks to go in the fantasy season. Come on. How we already at week 11? How are we already at week 11? I can't believe it. I'm going to think the season may even not happen to all of a sudden week 11. Injury riddled season. But that comes with the territory of that football game, you dig? So we got the best of waiver ads. We got the top 5. And we got top defenses. It's going to be a spicy show. Let's get into it. First of all, let's get into the injuries from the weekend. First off, Breeze. That boy was already coming into the week with some fractured ribs. I think they said he had fractured ribs on his left side. Came into the week, left with fractured ribs on his right side too. That's crazy. And then he was on the sideline talking, and then just came out yesterday that he has a collapsed lung. Breeze, baby boy. You 41, man. Take it easy. Take it. I say the Saints put him on IR, right? 3 weeks off. That's why you got Winston. You got Winston and Taysom Hill. Utilize them. You're going to have Taysom Hill take a lot more snaps. He should run the ball a lot more, but teams are going to be keen to that. Him in the game, all right, he's going to be running. And I guarantee you at least once there's going to be a play where, Taysom Hill's running, and all of a sudden he passes it for a touchdown, and everyone freaking out. And if y'all remember, over the offseason, Sean Payton, when he was talking about Taysom Hill, saying, he's going to be the one to supersede Drew Brees when it's his time to retire. Come on. Come on. They thanked him over the offseason. They're paying him $16 million a year. That's insane. Cam Newton making $1 million. Winston making $1 million. Taysom Hill making $16 million. That's more than both the McCourty brothers combined. That's ridiculous. And then they wonder why are we lacking in this area of defense? Or why don't we have this lineman? You know what I mean? Why don't we have another wideout to fill in when Michael Thomas gets injured? It's things like that, man. Next big injury, we have Teddy Bridgewater. It was scary seeing him go down. It was kind of one of them ones where he was rolling out trying to evade the rush, and then all of a sudden someone tackled him, side of his knee, didn't completely get stuck in the ground. If it did, that would have been bad. It would have been real bad. But it's good that it didn't. He only has a sprained MCL, and he has a chance to play this week. I would pick up PJ Walker in 2 QB leagues just in case, because in 2 QB leagues, that league is deep. The league is real deep, so you're able to drop somebody. If you still have James White on your roster and you don't have Rex Burkhead and he's still on the free agent wire, you don't want to win. You don't want to win. Next big injury, Stafford kind of played it off, but he picked up a thumb injury. Probably has some ligament damage in there. Stafford. He's up there with the top dogs of all the dogs. He's gonna play through it, and it's one to monitor, especially in 2 quarterback leagues. It's an injury that could keep him out, maybe because of the doctors. But if it was up to Stafford, I know he'd be in there. And Amendola in the same game. I had one of my bets over the weekend was Amendola over 3.5 catches, and I was like, that's a lot coming off a week where he had 7 catches on 10 targets, and Galladay was out again. So heading into that second half, he had 3 catches already, and then he gets hurt, pulls up with a hip injury, doesn't return. So that blew that bet. If Amendola does end up playing this week, he'll definitely be a pickup if Galladay's out. Obviously, you can't bank on a player to get injured. You never want that. Knock on wood for that. But if he is playing and Galladay is out, definitely pick him up, and he's definitely startable versus Carolina. And the Week 10 bets, the little prop lock and drop it was about even this week. It was one of my down weeks. 3 and 4 is a down week. I don't like that. Still pulled ahead over the money with that Tom Brady plus 150 over 2.5 touchdown prop bet. But Cleveland, if that wasn't one of the worst bad beats I've ever seen, but it's smart as hell. You can't get mad at that. Maybe if you have thousands on the line, but you got to understand when it comes to football, not everybody is going to be Todd Gurley and just run into the end zone, right? Some people are running with the head on their shoulders. So, good play from Chubb. That's love there. Cleveland was -4. I thought for sure they were going to beat them, but when the spread is that close, just stay on the safe side and go pick the money line. Take them -220. You know what I mean? As long as you're winning, right? Because if you take the spread and you lose, you don't win shit. But if you just take a money line, -220, yeah, you aren't winning as much, but you're also still winning. That's the mindset you have to have when it comes to betting. It's not like, oh, I want to cash in and hit like $5,000 every time. Like, no, that's not going to happen. You aren't even going to hit like 1,000 every time, depending on how much you're betting. But over time, when you make those smart bets, turn into hitters. So Miami -1.5 versus the Chargers. Told you that was the lock. We had Van Noy returning. It wasn't a game. In that same game, I had Tua over 19.5 rushing yards. Previous game, he had 7 for 35, but he also did have that long run. Just based off that long run, I thought that showed a little bit of confidence in his legs and moving, but ended up, I think he had negative yards. Probably got sacked a few times against that Chargers defense, even with Joey Bosa out. So we lost that one. We had Josh Allen over 303.5 yards. The fact that didn't hit, I think he ended with 282, and he threw 2 picks. Come on. So we lost that one. But that Brady over 2.5, we got that early. And that's also a key to betting too. You want to, as soon as those prop bets drop, you know the odds on those are going to fluctuate throughout the game or throughout the day and that morning leading up to the games. And if you get them early, you could find a lock like that, because 1 o'clock came around and that over 2.5 was at -110, even on both sides. So it's either whoever was setting up the odds fucked up just based off last week, or the money was just slammed on the over 2.5. So the odds just fluctuate that way when money goes hard one way. And then the other hitter we had, the over 56.5 in that Buffalo versus Cardinals game. The Hail Mary of all Hail Marys, D-Hop in the end zone. Let me get that and I'll talk to you next week. That shit was bad, man. That shit was bad. So, up and down the week of bets, Cleveland -4.5. That was rough. Josh Allen, 2 picks, finished 20 yards out. That was rough. Tua, that was a gamble. But 3 hitters, high stakes takes, tuning in to cash out. Send it. So the early forecast, moving on. We got the early forecast for injuries for week 11. Some players to keep an eye on. Questionable tags. We got early outs. And this is especially crucial when it comes to Tuesday and putting in your waiver wires. It's good to know who's out, who has a questionable tag, who was ruled out early last week that has maybe a slight less chance of returning this week than other players. So, first off, McCaffrey already ruled out for week 11. It's tough. It's tough for fantasy owners. You thought you were going to get that stud over the past couple years, which first couple games before he got hurt, he's a stud. And that shoulder injury, it didn't even look like much. But just the way you fall sometimes, and if you so built like fucking McCaffrey and you fall, it's tough, yo. It's tough. You got a lot more muscle to pull. The next person is out, and I'll probably count him out early, just based off the fact that he had no shot to play last week. Chris Carson, he'll be out this week. They're coming on a short week with a Thursday night game versus the Cardinals, which is going to be fire. It's going to be so fire. But another running back that's behind him that missed last week, Carlos Hyde, he definitely has a chance to play. He had a hamstring injury, and with Alex Collins coming out of nowhere and DJ Dallas not really doing shit last week, Carlos Hyde, he's only 11% owned. He's part of my waiver wire ads. If he plays, he's gonna be the bell cow back. It's almost guaranteed. Last game he played when Carson wasn't in there, 16 rushes. Give me that. And then he's gonna have at least 3 targets. I'll take that volume 2. That's with all the injuries, I'll take it. Take anything you could get, especially for a flex position. That's money. And then on top of that, you could watch it Thursday. What's better than having a fantasy player on a primetime game? There's nothing better than that. I just kick back, spark up, and it's like, send it. Next player that's out was out last week. Was out the week before that. Pretty sure he missed the week before that or got injured in that week. Sam Darnold already got ruled out early, so he's very questionable next week, if not rest of the year, based on how the Jets are doing. So Joe Flacco will get another start. That looks like a plus for Jamison Crowder. It's Crowder last week, he had that nasty catch on the sideline, but didn't really get the target share like that, like I had expected. But it was probably because they were easing him back in. And now, first week, get your touchdown, get your little bit of catches. Back this week, give me 10 targets, give me at least 7 catches. Over 80 yards. I don't know what the prop bet looks like this early, but give me over 80 yards and a touchdown. He's definitely a locked-in wide receiver 2 this week. And even with Flacco playing, because Flacco's one of them quarterbacks that's just going to dump it down now. They have a running game. They have Frank Gore, the Michael P. Ryan. And we'll get to the Michael P. Ryan a little later. But with Frank Gore and P. Ryan, you're just going to run the ball. You don't really have targets. You have Denzel Mims, who's not really doing much because of the quarterback situation. Then you have Chris Herndon. Hasn't really done shit. And Crowder's the go-to. So lock him in week 2. Wide receiver 2. Another big name at the quarterback position, especially for a big name team, the Cowboys. Andy Dalton is on the track to return this week. That's big with fantasy implications for certain players like Michael Gallup, who could be available in your league because he probably got dropped just because of the quarterback situation. And then Dalton Schultz. That's also in my waiver wire section. It's think he's at 16% owned, and it's almost money with Dalton coming back. Dalton's probably going to play a little hesitant. They're going to run the ball a lot. I think Dalton Schultz should return to at least 6 targets a game, 40 to 50 yards, and it's whether or not he gets that touchdown. And especially this week with San Fran on a bye, we have Jordan Reed out. So it's getting dicey. It's getting dicey. Chicago on a bye, Jimmy Graham out. Giants on a bye, Evan Ingram out. So make sure you get your tight end on your waiver wire early because people are going to be lurking. Next person with a big questionable tag, Joe Mixon, is dicey. Dicey with Mixon. He was ruled out early. It was looking up for him. But then all of a sudden, he was just ruled out. Giovanni Bernard got the start. I ended up dropping Bernard just based off the fact that Mixon was returning off a bye week. I thought it was looking up, but that's how it goes in the fantasy season, man. That's how it goes. So, Joe Mixon, big questionable tag. Giovanni Bernard should get the start, and if he does, lock him in as a running back too. And then another big name for the Falcons could return. He was held out week 9. They had a bye week last week. Calvin Ridley, if he's back, that's huge. That's huge for the Falcons. And it should open up the area a little bit for Hayden Hurst in the middle. But if he doesn't return, definitely go pick up Zacchaeus or the wide out for Atlanta. And definitely go pick up Russell Gage. He had 2 catches on 6 targets last week. All the fantasy experts are trending him down. Russell Gage, he has those weeks. If you remember last year, he did have a couple weeks where he was down. But send it for the rest of the year. Make sure you go get Russell Gage. And he's definitely a deep flex play. And then the last play we have, I hope you picked him up last week. I dropped his name on the waiver wire show last Tuesday. Allen Lazard. He's been out since week 3. That week 3 performance, 146 yards and 2 touchdowns before he went out. If you could pick him up and stash him this week, if he is somehow still out there, definitely go grab him because Valdez-Scantling is really just a big play receiver. And then Allen Lazard returning, that just helps out Devontae Adams, takes the pressure away from him a little bit. And that definitely helps out Lazard too because you have all that pressure on Adams. So Lazard is good in his own right as a wide receiver too. So send it. That's the early forecast for week 11. It's looking dicey. Injury-riddled season. What can you expect through the vid? I'll just be like... I'm just like... And you know damn well time ticking, boy. Got my top 5 best waiver ads of the week. Now, if you haven't picked up these players earlier, all these players under 40% owned. They could be out there. We have a couple in the teens, so they definitely should be out there on your waiver wire. My top ad of the week. I faded him last week just based off the expectation that Austin Eckler would return. He's still on his way to returning, but it's probably looking like next week, maybe the week after. So, Kalen Ballage, and even when Eckler does return, Kalen Ballage has been the bell cow back for the Chargers. He has 33 carries over the past 2 weeks. And then, on top of that, he has 42 touches. If you're getting that volume, I'll take it all day, especially out of the backfield. And if Eckler does return, his volume out the backfield will probably trend down. His touches running the ball will definitely still be there, though. So he's definitely my top waiver ad of the week. And definitely going to be a start of the rest of the season. And he's only 20% owned, so he is most likely out there. Probably not in deep leagues, but if you're in that money league where you know a couple people in your league are sleeping, don't really pay attention, like Wednesday on the waiver wire, pick up people on like a Thursday or Wednesday afternoon. Sneak in there. Put in that waiver wire. Make sure you get him. Set him to priority 1. Because you can't do that in Yahoo. After you pick up a certain amount of people, you could go change the number in which you wish to set them as your priority, like 1 through however many players you have. So definitely make sure you set that, and don't just keep adding people to your waiver wire. You want to set your priority to make sure, all right, if I don't get this player, I want this player instead of that one. So definitely something to look at. A little tips and tricks to make sure you're just fully hitting them with the finesse of Hutchins. My next number 2 waiver ad of the week, we have Salvin Ahmed. How about that, man? Last week getting 21 carries for 85 yards and a tutty. And a tutty? Come on. Come on. He's only 7% owned in Yahoo leagues. Make sure you go put in your waiver wire for him. He's a starting running back from Miami. The reason why I have him number 2, he's not necessarily gonna be starting the rest of the year, like guaranteed. Especially with Myles Gaskin set to return either next week or the week after. Should be back within 2 to 3 weeks. Once he returns, he'll probably get his usage cut in half. So I'm not all over him. Like, don't give up your whole fab for him or think he's going to be starting. That's more of a barrage. So with Salvin Ahmed, you could definitely pick him up. And then he's a starter until Gaskin comes back. And definitely monitor Gaskin. On your Yahoo League too, do your due diligence. Go to Gaskin and set him to your My Watch list. Just so you can keep track of players that say you have their handcuff. You can keep track of their injury news too. So definitely just have all your things set up so you know, all right, when I'm going in, I know where to look for all this information and I can set my lineup just like that. My next waiver ad. He got picked up a decent bit last week. Some people faded him, especially with T.Y. Hilton coming back. I know I faded him. But clearly, he's going to be the number 1 in Indy. Michael Pittman Jr. He's only 10% owned. Coming off a week where he had 8 targets on 7 catches for 101 yards. Didn't quite get the touchdown, but seen 87 snaps the week before. 87% of snaps the week before that. And he also seen 7 targets in that game while T.Y. was out. So to get the same number of targets in a game where T.Y. Hilton returned is money. And it's sad, but T.Y. Hilton either his ambition after Luck left kind of went down, or he's just getting up there. He's getting a lot of injuries and he's slowing down a little bit, but he could definitely be still a serviceable wide receiver. I see him maybe going to like a big name team next year, maybe like Green Bay. Imagine that. Yeah, T.Y. A little like B version of T.Y. with Devontae Adams. That'd be bad news. That would be bad news. My next ad of the week, number 4. Dalton Schultz. If you need a tight end, he has 15 targets over the past 2 weeks. And he's only 16% owned. I'm seeing Logan Thomas as being more added than Dalton Schultz. And Logan Thomas is at 35% to start the week. He only has 12 targets over the past couple weeks. So, especially seeing that, and especially with an Alex Smith ran team that's thrown to McKissick 12 plus times a game, that tight end position doesn't look that good. Especially with Sims coming onto the picture for Washington, especially with Terry McLaurin. Scary Terry, that boy is just a beast. So pick up Dalton Schultz because you know Andy Dalton's returning, so probably gonna play a little scary. Want to dump it off a lot more. Give me Dalton Schultz. And 16% owned. He's definitely there. People are gonna be all over Logan Thomas. Give me Dalton. So number 5. I had him there last week. If you started him, you probably, if you didn't, you probably went and looked at his stat line and you were like, Rex Burkhead, 24% owned. That moved up from 19% owned last week. Had 3 touchdowns over the past 2 weeks.